Hello again. It is good to be back. Welcome back to the Midnight Madness Radio. Welcome back, everybody. We're back on the Midnight Madness Radio. Did you miss us? We missed you. I am your host, Madness, and this is the Madness Radio, the Midnight Madness Radio. So, we are back. All people, I know I've been gone for a while because there was a lot going on, you know. I got other stuff to do, got to make the money, yada, yada, yada. So we're just now getting back into stuff, and, you know, we wanted to talk about stuff that needed to be talked about, but that I've been wanting to talk about for frickin' forever. Okay, so the things we need to talk about that we've been wanting to talk about forever. Guess what? We're finally talking about it. We're gonna talk about Disney, Star Wars, what's going on with the Bad Batch, stuff like that. Yes, I don't know if you ever wanted to hear about it, but if you like the Bad Batch, then we can talk about it together. So, we're going to be talking about some themes that I'm noticing and finding, especially as of late, that are going on with Disney properties and the movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So, okay, the main topic is the Bad Batch. That's what we is going to be talking about, and you can hear the madness. The cats are not in the room, but I am still mad, so there you go. So yes, the Bad Batch. I have watched every episode up to date, about 2 to 3 times a piece, because I want to essentially get all the information in my head and analyze and, you know, really take in the show. I have been enjoying the show. Right now, it's sort of starting to teeter off a little bit, but, you know, when I went to the show and watched the first episode, I was like, this is fantastic. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was like, okay, this is really cool, and there's stuff that can go with it. So, basically, okay, so we go into the first episode, and they, you know, they're like, it's right after, obviously, the episode 3, and it's right after that, and stuff happens and whatnot, and you know, everybody's complaining about how Kanan/Caleb's voice is way too deep for him, and, you know, it's just kind of funny that they have auto-tune, and yet they don't use the auto-tune on his voice for some reason. So I thought that was kind of funny. It's weird, but okay. The Bad Batch specifically. After watching, you know, the Bad Batch episodes that were in the Clone Wars, and I watched them a couple times, and I was like, this is really good. I really, you know, I liked the Bad Batch, but I was like, you know, I wasn't so sure, but, you know, the more episodes I watched, you know, the more they had several episodes with the Bad Batch, so we got to know them a little better, and we started to really like them, and we're like, these are good guys. They're decent guys. That we like them a lot. So, you know, we went into the Bad Batch thinking, like, this is good. I'm really excited to see how they explore the Bad Batch and this and that. And, you know, they pulled in Omega, and I was like, oh, okay, that's different. She took a little bit for her to grow on me as well. The same thing with the Bad Batch. They took a second to grow on me, too. I started off not even sure if I was crazy about them, because I was like, these guys are okay, but they're kind of sort of sometimes jerks. You know, how themes in the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars and Star Wars, prevalent things that have always been there, is like prejudices. And, you know, in a lot of cases they do, you know, it shows how that, you know, even in an alien society filled with varieties of aliens, there's lots of prejudices. I can't even speak right. Prejudices. I can't even say the word right. So, you can be, lots of different people be racist. That's just unfortunately how it goes. People will always be prejudiced towards somebody, whether it's if you're a nationalist or, sometimes people are like, oh, your color of your skin or what races you are and mix and da-da-da, which we don't want that. We want a society where, people are just people. Like, why can't people just be people? So, I did appreciate that, the Clone Wars and Star Wars has always sort of, touched on that, but they haven't, unfortunately. Disney has never really delved a lot into, talking about how being prejudiced is not a good thing and how it shouldn't be a thing and how we should stop it and stuff like that. Like, I've noticed, especially in Star Wars, Disney will, and then Lucasfilms, the Star Wars has touched upon being prejudiced, but they have never really shamed the idea of being prejudiced against a culture or race or species or whatever. They don't focus on the fact that that's not okay, and we shouldn't ever be like that or support that. With the Bad Batch, they were prejudiced against regular clones. Like, they were like regs. So, basically, that was another thing that made me hesitant about the Bad Batch when I first watched the Clone Wars, when I first watched those episodes. It was like, even this group of clones that are, slightly different are prejudiced against other clones. And I really liked how they focused on that in the episode. And, it showed, they realized that they were in the wrong in a lot of ways. And that they were judging, the regular clones too harshly. And they were treating them like they were lower probably because they felt like they were treated lower. So, I did appreciate those Bad Batch episodes were really good combinations because you got Captain Rex and Jesse and, some other clones, Cody and stuff like that. They were in there and they essentially showed the Bad Batch that their prejudices against regular clones were unwarranted and didn't make any sense because at the end of the day, they're all brothers and they're all clones anyway. So they should really be banding together to treat each other, like brothers and treat each other like people. So those episodes were, good because they had that message about it. But, it seems like Disney has been pulling away from that. And then, the idea and the concept of slavery and enslavement, that I feel is very important. That's the main reason why I decided to make this video about the Bad Batch. 'Cause, that first episode, it was like, okay, I think they really have something here they could work with. So, that first episode, it was like, all the Bad Batch, they weren't really affected, but Crosshair was. Crosshair was affected. His chip hadn't totally malfunctioned. And, it showed that he was still enslaved to the Empire and the way of the clones. When it comes down to it, the main thing that really ticked me off about the Clone Wars and that they didn't, and Disney keeps deciding to ignore, and people keep deciding to ignore, is the fact that clones are essentially bred slaves. They are slaves. They are enslaved. They were bred to fight a war and die and give their lives. That should be a very big message in the Clone Wars and in the Bad Batch. But for some reason, Lucasfilms and Star Wars and Disney keep ignoring the fact and keep trying to, dawdle around the idea that they're enslaved and they're slaves and they're bred to think that they are supposed to be soldiers and they're supposed to fight and die in a war that is not their war, that they never signed up for. They have no choice. So the fact that Disney keeps, going into the clones and having, the Bad Batch and stuff like that, and blatantly, in some points, blatantly ignoring and victim shaming the clones and saying that they're bad guys or villains a lot of times, especially with Crosshair, is a great example. And that has been, I've been watching the Bad Batch, hoping and praying that it will, improve and get better, and Disney will show the message of, fighting against being enslaved. So far, I haven't seen that, and it's been really disappointing me and really letting me down that, again, Disney has had a checkered past with, the Song of the South and a lot, other racist topics and stuff like that has gone on, and Disney, we know for a fact that Disney has made light of slavery multiple times over the years in a lot of their stuff, and that's a big issue, and they keep trying to bury it instead of focusing on the fact that that happened, and they're not apologizing for it. They're not doing anything for it. They're just trying to sweep it under the rug. So that's where the Star Wars Clone Wars and stuff like that is bugging me, and I'm feeling less hopeful and more as the Bad Batch goes on. I'm feeling less hopeful that they're going to have a good message in the end, because they were trying to push this message of choice. But when you are a bred slave, how can you have choice? If you are brainwashed, the only way you have choice is if someone forces you, backs you against a corner, and you are forced to decide, or you are made aware enough. But when you are essentially brainwashed, you're not going to be able to make a choice if you are designed a certain way. If you are a bred, designed slave, there's only so much choice you can make. The themes of the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, and really the Bad Batch, the focus should be on really the clones and how they are oppressed and how they are slaves. And they should have really pushed that message, especially right now, because we're in a time where we're trying to talk about racism more and realize that, the world is spotty and checkered, and a lot of bad things happened, and, a lot of people have had to suffer, and this show is victim blaming instead of focusing on the fact that bad stuff happened. The Bad Batch should really be focusing on really bad stuff happened to the clones. They were slaves, enslaved, and honestly, instead of the Bad Batch, they should have had a show about the clones and, why they were decommissioned, and it should be a show about how the clones are able to, essentially free themselves, even if it ends up in a bad way where, a lot of them end up dying, but if they push that message that, gaining their freedom and stuff like that. And it's possible that they might do that. I have hopes, but not high hopes, just because, so far they've been letting me down. Clear example, Crosshair. Crosshair was brainwashed. We know he was brainwashed. They put him in the machine to enhance his chip and make him even more brainwashed. So he's essentially just this brainwashed little dummy just doing whatever he's told because he has no free will anymore at all now. And Star Wars is trying to make him appear like he's a villain and he's a bad guy instead of focusing on the fact that the Bad Batch should essentially be trying to rescue him and get him free, or the Bad Batch should be about the Bad Batch trying to free clones and get clones out of their enslavement. and helping clones and helping someone like Crosshair. And that kind of positive message about fighting against oppression and slavery and trying to, even if it's a losing battle, trying to fight that kind of stuff. But it doesn't feel like Disney is pushing that message. It feels like, especially with the new episode, that they're trying to make, they keep trying to push this victim blaming thing where, he's brainwashed, but we want you to think he's a bad guy because he's brainwashed. They did that with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They were trying to change the message in Captain America, Winter Soldier, about how, Bucky was enslaved and brainwashed and he was manipulated and he was a brainwashed little puppet dummy. And then they made the TV show and these people are coming out and saying, oh no, he knew what he was doing. It's like, no, he didn't know what he was doing. He was brainwashed. It's the same thing with Crosshair. He was brainwashed. Why is Disney pushing the message that they should victim shame people? And instead of focusing on good topics, they're pushing bad ones. What is this? I thought Disney was supposed to be, they claim that they're a company that's supposed to be, kid friendly and pushing messages for kids and good stuff. And yet in franchises like, Star Wars and Marvel, they're pushing messages about victim shaming people instead of fighting against oppression and slavery. Why is that not a message you want to be pushing, Disney? That should be something that should be pushed. Fighting against that kind of stuff. Fighting against oppression and, and racial ideas and, fighting against that stuff and trying to make people equal and trying to make people happy and trying to have a good world that we live in, that we can be proud of. And, one that is good and light, even though the world, sometimes seems dark. The messages in these movies and TV shows should be pushing good messages and showing, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, or showing a light, like there is a goodness. Yes, the world may be in chaos right now, but, in this show, there is a good message and it's something that gives you hope. Why is Disney not pushing these hopeful messages? I cannot understand why they're not pushing good messages and trying to focus on good things. Like, we need to have more stuff that focuses on mental health, fighting, racial stereotypes. They're fighting against racism, fighting against prejudice, fighting against all that kind of stuff. Healing old wounds and fixing things and, giving a good example and a good message that shows that, there are good things out there. And I know sometimes I shake the camera and my goggles are foggy and they look funny, but it makes it funny, and it's the Madness Radio, so it makes it more exciting. So, honestly, it was like that keeps disappointing me, and I really hope this video is able to show, and people are able to see this video, and I'm gonna try to put as many tags as I can, and I wouldn't even care if it got demonetized anyway. Of course it's gonna get demonetized because Disney, anytime you mention anything with Disney, they're gonna demonetize you and try to make ad revenue. So I'm hoping that because it is a video about Disney and Star Wars and stuff like that, that, more people will see this and, get to, get that message and get to hear about the stuff that's going on. As episodes go on in the Bad Batch, I was kind of hopeful for a point, and then, they had the episode where Rex came back, and I was really happy. I was like, okay, they're finally gonna focus on the fact that the chips and trying to get the chips out. And I was like, okay, then maybe the Bad Batch is gonna go out and try to rescue Crosshair and get the chip out of him, and this and that. And they had the episode afterwards, which was really good, where it's like Crosshair was trying to, take them down. And, you know, they had the chance to get the chip out of him given the circumstances, but, you know, they brought Cad Bane in at the end and it pulled away from that potential. And I get that they, you know, they have this whole plot thing going on, but that's the thing. It makes me nervous that instead of focusing on the fact that they should be trying to help this character and free him from his enslavement and his chip, and you know what, if they can get it out of him and he can, you know, I like to think that he would go back to normal, because the way he was in Clone Wars versus now is very different. And I think that's very hingent on the fact that he's brainwashed. Now, what is really going to disappoint me is if at the end, you know, they make it that Crosshair is a bad guy. He just became bad because he had the chip in him so long. But when you think about it, if you compare it to Wolf in Rebels, Wolf had probably had the chip in for a while and eventually got it out, probably with the help of Rex, and he was not brainwashed anymore, but he had that fear. He still thought that the Jedi were bad because he was still brainwashed, and that brainwashing was still in his mind. And he still had that stigma against the Jedi, thinking that they were bad, even though they weren't. But he realized that they weren't bad when he was around them long enough, and he realized that, but he didn't have the chip anymore. So I think a healthy message would be Crosshair get, you know, the Bad Batch rescue him, they get the chip out of him, and he can slowly, or almost automatic, if it's like Wrecker, he's like, the entire time. I think it could be a really good emotional scene if they got the chip out of him and he was crying and he was like, I killed so many people. And it essentially, they could put another good, healthy message that we need right now that would be very important, is about mental health and having a good message. Because if they decide to make more seasons of the Bad Batch, if it goes over well, they should push the theme of Crosshair and his, you know, mental health and having to recover from trauma. And that should be something that goes on. It's the same thing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That should have been a message that was very healthily pushed. They should have really focused on the fact that the Winter Soldier had PTSD really bad and was suffering from the mental torture and abuse he went through, instead of victim blaming him. And they freaking victim blamed him. And it is really disappointing that instead of focusing on good, healthy messages that could make a difference for people, especially people like me who have mental issues and, you know, have mental disabilities because of horrible events that have gone. Instead of victim blaming these people, you should be sending out messages and having messages in your TV shows that talk about stuff like that. About mental illness, about slavery, about prejudice. Those are key messages in a healthy way, though. In a healthy way, we should be addressing those things. We should be talking about these things. These things are really prevalent right now in our society, right now, today. And you should be using your TV shows to shine a healthy light on these situations. Star Wars could be a great series. The Bad Batch could be an amazing series if they would focus on trying to, you know, focusing on the mental health and the healing and focus on the clones more instead of all the other crap we don't care about or the Empire or whatnot. They should really be focusing on the clones and about getting them free, like the freedom. How will they get free? Will they die? We don't really know, because we know they decommissioned the clones, but we don't know why, we don't know how. So the message really should be pushed that the clones end up finding their freedom, and that's why they're, quote, decommissioned, is because they realized that they didn't have to be slaves anymore and they could fight back. That would be a great message to push. There is no reason you shouldn't be pushing that message, because that is a message that is very important, and it can correlate with our society about how a lot of, you know, races were oppressed and subjected to slavery and horrible things. All different types of races were thrown into slavery at some point, or even in some cases, religions, or belief systems. And that should be a focus. That should be about fighting against that kind of stuff and people getting freedom, and then people, them recovering from said things that happened. Focusing on all the bad stuff, but in a good light, and healing, and then focusing on, something, mental illness and stuff. Really focusing on healing. Healing should be a great message that Disney should be pushing, and yet it feels like they're not pushing it. Another example, and I hate to get off topic, I'm sorry, but on topic of, Disney pushing bad messages, is Loki. What's happening with Loki right now? I do not personally like Sylvie as a character. I think she's a bad character. She's really badly written. Another YouTuber, Altiori, talked about how she wasn't a good character, and I totally agree. And how they ruined the character of Loki, I totally agree. I think they made him very wimpy, very docile. I think they ruined his character and completely took away his manhood and gave it to this female character, not because she's a good character, but because she was a female. No, that's not okay. That's not a good message to be pushing. And that is a message that Disney has been pushing. Why is Disney pushing bad messages about women are entitled, or women should be viewed as better or superior because they're women? No, don't pity them or give them stuff out of pity and make them seem weaker. No, make good, strong female characters that are great. Like, example, because we're talking about the Bad Batch, and guess who showed up? Sorry about the spoilers. Warning for spoilers. Hera. Hera showed up in the new episode. She is one of the best, most developed, well-developed Star Wars characters, who is a female, who is very strong, standalone, and she earned her respect because she is a character. She is really awesome on her own. She is just a well-rounded character who is not afraid to fight for what she wants, and she is really good at it. She's a great pilot, yada yada. Sylvie, not a good character. Not well written at all. Why is it that Rebels was such a good show and well written, and supposedly Dave Filoni is supposed to be working on all the Star Wars stuff? Rebels was really good. Clone Wars, despite some of its faults, Clone Wars was really good. Rebels was really good. But the Bad Batch, going from the beginning to the end of the Bad Batch, or where we are now, where we were and where we are now, I am seeing a plummet. And I don't know why that is. It's how, like, Loki, that show just started off in a plummet and it just keeps getting worse. And I don't think the next episode is gonna redeem it that much. So it's like, why, Disney? Why are you purposefully ruining all your TV shows? It's mostly the TV shows. Some of the movies, it's like, okay, but it's mostly the TV shows that they're spreading bad messages and supporting bad things and pushing bad stuff instead of focusing on good messages and healthy things. Disney is supposed to be this great company, and yet they were built on bad things and they're still pushing bad messages. Why is that? I don't know. But I think we should really talk about this, and we should get these kind of topics trending. These should be the things we're talking about, is how do we push healthy, good messages and good stuff that makes us happy and not feel so sad or down with the world? Like, lately, I've been feeling very sad about the world, and I haven't had much hope for it because all I keep seeing is more drama and garbage spread, and I try to stay away from it in my own little world, but I hear about it from people, and it's just like, well, our world just keeps getting worse, and you're not helping it, Disney. You could be helping it. You should be helping it. As a company that is very influential, especially towards the younger generations, you should be focusing on those good, healthy messages and pushing those and giving people hope. And you are not. What is with that? So, the Bad Batch. I hope there is some redeeming qualities, and I hope it can get better, and I hope that it'll get more seasons, and they will focus on mental health and fighting slavery and oppression and fighting prejudices. And, you know, it should be, we should technically get another show that would be about the, you know, how the Empire is, you know, giving people problems and people are having to deal with it and fight against all the stuff that's going on. I don't know if Disney will do that. I'm hoping and praying that these good messages will shine through and they will fix these problems, and that they're not going to just ruin a good character like Crosshair and just make him this garbage character just because they need a villain and they want to victimize, you know, they want to victimize and victim blame, you know, innocent people who are suffering due to other evil forces. Like, at the end of the day, it's the Empire that's the problem, not the clones. So why are you not focusing on the fact that the clones need help and pushing that message and having the Bad Batch be, you know, the actual group be these guys that come together to fight against that oppression and fight and help everybody? That would be a great message. And I hope that possibility is still there. We'll see. I hope this video finds people and, you know, yada yada, and hopefully that message will get pushed. I am getting a call, so we're gonna end this video right here. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like and let me know how you liked it, and we'll talk soon, and you guys stay mad. And if you like this topic, then I want to talk more about this kind of stuff, and we'll make another video about it, and maybe we'll delve more into the Winter Soldier and Loki and stuff like that. I want to talk about stuff that we're not talking about. So, have a good day. Stay mad. Goodbye.